Alright, so ever since I made my Tame Impala Minecraft video, I recently began to like a music group you might have heard of, Radiohead. In the span of around 35 years, they have made 9 albums, each sounding distinctly different, but still similar. And I must say, I love their music. It's just, mwah! Radiohead has honestly become one of my favorite music groups, due to each of their albums being special and bringing a new sound, while still retaining that Radiohead touch. And the more I listen to each album, the more I notice, musically and lyrically wise. So, because of this, I decided to recreate all of Radiohead's album covers, but in Minecraft. The first album I decided to recreate was Pablo Honey, which was their debut album, and if I'm gonna be honest, this is actually my least favorite album. So, I started off by figuring out the dimensions for the album, which I decided to be 27 blocks by 27 blocks. After that, I then used white concrete powder for the white background behind the flower, and a mixture of yellow concrete powder and yellow concrete for the flower. Next, it was time to choose the block that I was going to use for the weird cookies in the cover. And I was put between raw copper and orange glazed terracotta. However, I ended up choosing the latter. After that, I built the remaining areas of the flower and added a green screen in the middle for the baby's head. I then took this into Photoshop and it was fairly simple. I added the border around the album, the titles, and Steve's head instead of the baby. And yeah, here's the final result. Definitely not one of my favorite albums, but I did like how it ended up looking. Now is on to the next album cover. The Bends is where Radiohead's music gets really good, with my personal favorites of mine being Fake Plastic Trees, High and Dry, Bulletproof I Wish I Was, and Street Spirit. So the first thing to do was to build the dimensions and to choose a color palette. After that, I went about and making the weird crash test dummy in the cover. No idea what it is. And yeah, it was looking pretty terrible. Alright, so my second idea was to make a skin which resembles a dummy in the cover, and I went ahead and did that. After that, I built a green screen wall, took a picture, and then it was on to editing the picture. The first thing I did was key it out, then I added the text, a black background, some color overlays, and a bit of visual noise, and that was it. Now, here is one of my
all-time favorite albums.
And I even consider it to be one of the best albums of all time. I even have the album on vinyl. I enjoy every song on this album, but if I were to choose my favorites, they would probably be Paranoid Android, Subterranean Homesick Alien, Exit Music for a Film, Calmer Police, and Climbing Up the Walls. Yeah, it's almost the entire album. The first thing I decided to recreate was the drawing seen all over the album cover, which I'll be using later. Then I hopped onto Minecraft and recreated the highway, using the original image as reference. After that, I exported it into Procreate, added the drawings, messed around with the colors to match the album, and added visual noise and sketch overlays. I think it turned out pretty awesome, and I'm pretty happy with the result. Now, onto the
next album.
If OK Computer was rocketing up into space, then Kid A would be when you reach the edge of the atmosphere. The more I listen to it, the more I enjoy the music. Definitely a huge leap forward for Radiohead, and my favorites at the moment are Everything in Its Right Place, the National Anthem, How to Disappear Completely, Optimistic, and Idiotech. Kid A is definitely my second favorite Radiohead album, and I personally think OK Computer and Kid A are equally good. Hell, I even got it on vinyl too, along with Amnesiac 2, I guess, but we'll see that later on in the video. Definitely my favorite era of artwork too from Radiohead as well. So the first thing I decided to recreate was those mountains, or are they volcanoes? Both, I guess. After that, I did more of those mountains in the background, and I was almost done. Next, it was time for the sky in the background, but while recreating it, I gave up and decided to just make the background in Procreate. Wow, I didn't think it would look this good, but damn, it did. Now on to the next album, which would release 8 months later. I love how initially Amnesiac sounds sort of like the remnants of Kid A, but then evolves into a very jazzy and warm sound. This album hits different when it's foggy and cold outside. Pyramid Song, You and Whose Army, Knives Out, Dollars and Cents, and Like Spinning Plates were by far my favorite tracks from the album. The first thing I did was build a 29 by 29 border with black concrete. Then I went on to build a red book. Yeah, that's right, that's actually a book in the album cover. For the longest time, I honestly had no idea what it was. So I used a mixture of red terracotta, acacia and oak planks, and smooth sandstone. Then I jumped into Photoshop to match up the colors, and I was finished. This album recreation is probably one of my favorites that I did, and it was pretty simple. On to the next album. this is such an underrated album, and I don't see that many people talk about it. The album has one of my favorite songs from them, like Sit Down Stand Up, 2 + 2 = 5, or End and You Begin, There, Scatterbrain, and more. Oh, and don't get me started on Wolf at the Door. I never thought that I would like to hear Tom York rap, but hey, I would love some more of that. Now onto how I recreated this. The first thing I built was a strange matte pattern seen all across the album with a variety of colors like orange, yellow, green, red, and black. Apparently, the story behind this cover is that the album artist was driving around in LA while writing down signs he saw across the road, which is pretty interesting. After I initially created the sky with light blue terracotta, I decided to use the packed ice for that cloudy texture. It just looks better. Then, I built those paint lines in the background with black concrete. When it came to editing the image in Procreate, I had a surprising amount of fun in fitting in all the text present on the album cover. Additionally, I also made sure to match up the colors while adding some paint overlays and a bit of visual noise. I think what really tied this recreation together was that final touch in adding the text. Now, onto the next album. In Rainbows is definitely in my top 3 in terms of Radiohead's discography. I really feel this is where everything that came before was mixed together into a fiery explosion, and this was the result. The album cover perfectly demonstrates this idea too, with the explosion bringing an amazing sound. When it comes to my favorites, it's very difficult to choose because, well, I love all the tracks. Now, onto how I recreated it. I first built a 29 by 29 black border and built the explosion with a mixture of colored glass and concrete. After constructing the main explosion, I built the particles surrounding the explosion with concrete powder. And when I completed it, I couldn't help but look at how good this ended up being. Then I took it into Photoshop, added a glow effect, and added the text. And it was finally completed. This one is definitely one of my favorites recreated as well. Okay, so this album definitely gets way too much hate. I actually enjoyed a lot of the tracks, and really, my only complaint was how short it was. Now, if some of the B-sides like Staircase and Super Collider were in it, then this album would definitely be even better than it already is, because come on, both of those songs rock. Now, onto how I recreated it. The first thing I did, like the past few recreations, is build a 29 by 29 frame with a grid split into 4 sections to help me out with the dimensions. Following that, I built the 2 ghosts, with blocks similar to how I built the Rainbow's explosion. After that, I began to build the background. And when I was done, I took it into Photoshop, added the lettering, brightened up the colors, added noise, and the vignette. Yeah, this one definitely ended up looking awesome in my opinion. A great recreation for a great and underappreciated album. Now onto their most recent album, A Moon-Shaped Pool. If there's any way this album makes me feel, then this is it. Okay, but for real, this album, like most of their works, is great. My favorites have been Daydreaming, Dex Dark, Full Stop, Identikit, The Numbers, Present Tense, True Love Waits, and wow, that's a mouthful.
Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Sailor, Rich Man, Poor Man, Beggar Man, Thief.
Okay, I basically love the entire album is what I'm trying to say. This is definitely one of their best works as well. Now onto how I recreated it. The first thing I did was build the frame, and like before, I used 29 blocks by 29 blocks. Then I built the strange blotch in the center. It kinda looks like a face now that I look at it. Then I built the surrounding gray texture, along with the gray blotches inside of the white. After that, I textured it, and it was ready to go into Photoshop. I then color corrected it, added text, and just like that, I finished recreating all of the albums. So, to conclude, I had a lot of fun recreating Radiohead's album covers, and it made me realize the geniusness in each of the album covers, due to it perfectly encapsulating the feel of each album, from Kid A's Alien Light cover to the explosion of colors from In Rainbows. And I can't wait to go to one of their concerts and to see what is in store for their next album. Also, they even released a video game too, for free? Well, I better go check that out. Let's see what else they're dipping their toes into. Wait, what? Fall Guys in Fortnite? Okay, I know it sounds like a joke, but I'm serious. Okay, what else? The Smile! Basically, some Radiohead band members came together to form a new side project and band. Basically, Radiohead 2. Anyways, I love Radiohead because of how much emotion their music invokes, and how unpredictable they are. Will they return to the sounds of In Rainbows, or
computer.
Or will they bring something entirely new for a future album? We can only wait to see what's in store for the future of Radiohead. All I know is that I definitely won't be let down. I'm Mauricio Jara, and
I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Slow